Alright, hey guys, in today's video, I'll be reviewing the Loupedeck CT and I'll also be comparing it to the Loupedeck Plus. I haven't seen much videos talking about how the Loupedeck Plus performs on things like Photoshop and Premiere, so I think it's worth covering this video. This video is not sponsored by Loupedeck at all, which is a great thing because I noticed that in a lot of Loupedeck videos that are sponsored, they always say the things like speed up your workflow, and there are a couple of phrases that are always just muttered, which makes me think that in their agreement to send them the review product, they have to say those things in their review. So a couple of fair warnings. I'm only reviewing this for Photoshop and Premiere. I'm not using this on Lightroom or any other program. And I'm also no pro at Photoshop or Premiere. I'm no professional at what I do. I'm just someone on YouTube making random videos. Alright, so let's dive right into it. The biggest difference between Loupedeck CT and Loupedeck Plus is the quality difference. You can feel a lot of difference when you hold the two products in your hand. The Loupedeck Plus feels like it's completely made of plastic, the knobs are not that great, and the middle knob is very clicky and kinda wobbly. In the Loupedeck CT, I can feel like the entire thing feels like it's made of metal actually. Even the knob in the middle is made of metal. I thought it was rubber at first, but it's actually just pure metal, and it spins a lot easily compared to the Loupedeck Plus. The Loupedeck Plus one has, it feels like those microwave knobs. This one is like completely linear, it's smooth, completely straight, there's no feedback or anything, no tactile bumps at all. The smaller knobs on the Loupedeck CT is also different from the Loupedeck Plus. They are more solid, they feel more metal, you don't feel the plastic washers or whatever is on the bottom of the knobs, unlike on the Loupedeck Plus. Alright, so there was one thing I really complained about the Loupedeck Plus back then. I even made a video complaining about it. Alright, so I'm just gonna play that clip that I recorded. Alright, so this is how the software looks like. It's not the best thing ever, honestly, because from the get-go you can see that you have no idea what the heck is binded to anything. You have to click on it to see what's binded, which is really annoying when you're still trying to learn how to use the deck, basically. On the bright side, there's a lot of custom stuff. For Premiere, there isn't much I changed, honestly, because it made me realize that I don't do much on Premiere actually. Not much buttons anyway. The knobs are great for a lot of color correcting if you're into that, but I don't do much color correcting, so yeah. Alright, Photoshop is where it starts to shine. The annoying thing is that you can't use space on this thing. I mean, they have the keyboard key and space here, but the thing is, what happens when you set it to space, right? Let's say I have this picture. If I was to use space, normally space would be the hand tool, right? When you hold space, you can drag around. You can't. When you hold it down, right, it only presses the hand once, and that's annoying. Because I use space a lot, like, you know, when I use this thing, and then I use space, and I can move the selection around. But you can't do that since you can't use space anymore on this thing. Another annoying thing this thing has is that there is no shift key. There is no shift key here, which is pretty bad. There is no shift key on this thing, and I really use shift a lot to like select all my layers at once, or to when I move an object and I want it to move in a straight line, basically. Or like when I'm trying to transform something and I want to deform it, or like, you know, all that stuff. But on the bright side, you can click this button and it'll turn into keyboard mode, and that's when you can press shift and you can hold it down, unlike the space button. So right now, honestly, this keyboard has such a huge drawback because you just cannot press or hold down space, which is dumb. I mean, you can press space, but you can't hold it down, which is terrible. That's like my only complaint with this thing. I mean, other complaints would be that this thing is not very ergonomic because like my hands are mostly on the keys, and these are so close together and cramped, and it's low down on the deck that it's quite claustrophobic, and it makes my hand feel strained after a while. But other than that, if I'm working on images and I want to quickly change the exposure, like maybe I want to change the contrast and I want to change the exposure, oh, this is great. Everything else, not so great. Oh, for some reason the tint and temperature button doesn't work. Okay, with the tint button, okay, now it's working. That's weird. So yeah, it's something, I guess. Alright, so for Loupedeck CT, you can do this. You can press down space. You can bind any key to press space. If it's those physical buttons, you can press and it'll hold down, unlike the Loupedeck Plus, which would not hold down, so you don't need to swap to keyboard mode. And also for the Loupedeck CT, the program allows you to set shift, which is interesting. I don't know why the Loupedeck Plus doesn't have it, even though they both use the same software. It's interesting. The buttons on the Loupedeck CT is better because they are bigger and more spaced out, and it's nicer to press, except that I realized that I needed more buttons on my keyboard. And here's the other thing that I noticed. The Loupedeck CT works on a lot more programs. You can work on Streamlabs OBS, you can work on DaVinci Resolve, you can work on Blender or Cinema 4D depending on all the custom profiles that you can download. It also works outside of the Adobe programs, which is a great thing. Yeah, so this means that I can use the Loupedeck CT to launch, let's say, make a shortcut to launch Discord for me, and I can use it to launch other Adobe programs or like, let's say, Windows Explorer or my settings on Windows, which is really good. You can also add custom actions, which is something that you can't do on the Loupedeck Plus. So I've been using it to do something dumb like send Discord emotes, I guess. Also with the custom actions, you can stack up different shortcut keys and actions on the profile you're using, which is really great because this means that you basically create small macros on this thing. It's not perfect, it definitely can be improved. It's nowhere as good as AutoHotkey or some other macro programs, but it's something, and it's definitely a feature that the Loupedeck Plus does not have. Also, the thing about the Loupedeck CT is that it has way more layers than Loupedeck Plus. I realized I was running out of keys binding space on my Loupedeck Plus for Photoshop, but on the Loupedeck CT there were so many layers, groups and workspaces that I could work with that I pretty much ran out of what I should put in the different spaces. Also, another thing is that the panel at the top of the Loupedeck CT is touchscreen, which is pretty bad. I was kind of expecting it to be like the Stream Deck buttons, which I wish it was, because the best way to work fast, if you really want to improve your workflow, is to just put everything to your muscle memory. That's why working with keyboard would be better if you just ingrained all the shortcuts to your muscle memory. Except for the Loupedeck CT, if you want to access any of your macros or your shortcut keys or your tools or whatever, you have to look at the Loupedeck if you want to press the key. You can't muscle memory unless you muscle memory the thing into your hand somehow where you can press the point of the touchscreen without looking at the CT. Another thing about the touchscreen is that it vibrates, but to actuate the buttons, you have to lift your finger. Like, it only actuates after your finger leaves the touchscreen, which is really weird. Like, why doesn't it press the moment I put my finger down? But I think it's mostly because they want to add in the feature where when you hold down the touchscreen, it shows what the touchscreen, what that button you held down is in the control wheel touchscreen thing. But it's still kind of bad. I mean, I would prefer it to work immediately the moment I press it than when I lift my finger, which also means that you cannot set things like control or space if you want to like hold it down on the touchscreen because there is no holding down function on the touchscreen. Also, it's really dumb that it vibrates when you touch it, because the thing is that to actuate it immediately is to quickly make a quick press on it. You're not going to feel the vibration afterwards, you know. Also, the design makes absolutely no sense on a CT, like the fact that the big dial is on the bottom. Like when I work with Photoshop Premiere, I want to press buttons more than turn the knobs. So if I want to press the touchscreen buttons, I have to lift my hand above. I would really much prefer the touchscreen to be beside the buttons. I mean, if I were to make my own Loupedeck CT, I would probably just make it like this, because like what's important to me is having my buttons closer to me than having to lift my hand over the control dial, which is also touchscreen by the way, which makes it even more annoying to press the touchscreen. It feels very straining for my left hand. The knobs and everything is really nice to use. It's no better than the mouse and keyboard, but it's the fact that you can touch something physical that feels really nice, and I really like touching the knobs a lot. Just that I haven't really found much of a use for the knob on the bottom. It's too linear, too easy to move. And another thing that the video Taran made from Linus Tech Tips is that you cannot control the acceleration of knobs, which is really annoying because I feel like the knobs move a bit too fast. I wish it could be slower, but I can't set it slower. And I wish I could turn off acceleration on the knobs, because the faster you turn it, the faster it would move basically. But I wish it was linear, like no matter how fast I turn it, it will always move at a consistent speed. The biggest issue with the Loupedeck CT and the Loupedeck Plus is that both of them lag, just like what Taran said in the Linus Tech Tip video. Let's say we click on something, it doesn't like work immediately sometimes, especially if you spend time in another window outside of the program you're using. This is when it will lag the most. And that's not good. It's not great. Overall, the Loupedeck CT is definitely way better than Loupedeck Plus, especially if you want to use it for anything but Lightroom. The Loupedeck Plus is clearly designed for Lightroom, especially with the layout and everything, and I feel like it takes way too much space on my desk, and without enough buttons and all that, it feels like it cannot replace my keyboard at all, especially the fact that you cannot hold down space on the Loupedeck Plus, which is pretty bad. The Loupedeck CT, however, can completely replace my keyboard. It has a learning curve to learn this thing, and the fact that there's so many layers can make your workflow actually become slower. It is no better than the mouse and keyboard, but it's definitely what I would say a luxury item. It can make you feel nice about it. I guess you can say that this is one of those products that makes you feel nice about yourself, I guess. In some ways, I can see how you can speed up some things. In other ways, I don't really see it because everything buried in layers is not very helpful. One thing I also really want is custom images, because I've been using this to send Discord emotes of all things. And the fact that I cannot send my own images for the touch panel makes it kinda But that's it for my review. This thing, it can replace my keyboard, the Loupedeck CT at least. But is it better than a keyboard? Not really, but I guess it's just a nice addition to my setup. I wouldn't mind to continue using it. And by the way, the keys actually feel really nice. I don't really know what. I lent my friend to try it, and he said they felt like mechanical keys, which is kind of interesting. I thought it was membrane or like scissor switches. It kind of feels like laptop keys to me, but better. But that's all for my review.